How often is it that you see a vocal effect that you're thinking, dude, how did they do that? Well, in this video, I'm gonna be showing you a vocal effect that even I was kind of like, whoa. And what's really crazy is that your imagination is the limit. When you actually understand the concept here, you're gonna be able to apply this in so many different ways. So this video is gonna be quick and dirty. Let me show you. So the very first thing we're gonna do is take a listen to the vocal. We're gonna listen in the context of the entire track, and we're gonna do it without the vocal effect that we're talking about. You can see this track Portal Vox down here. That's the actual vocal effect that we'll be taking a look at. But let's just go ahead and listen to this in the context of the mix, just for this small portion of the track.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight. It's so contagious, better check your pulse. So infectious, you might lose your mind.
All right, so that's what we're listening to. This is such a fun track. So this is just what the vocals sound like by themselves.
There's no telling when the bug will bite.
Okay, so it's, 3-tracked vocals, one in the middle, 2 panned hard. And this is what the actual effect sounds like now that we add this effect. Here's just this effect completely soloed out by itself so you can hear what it sounds like, and then we'll put it in the context. Isn't that crazy? Now listen to it in the context of the rest of these vocals here.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight. It's so
So it almost functions like this crazy reverb, crazy delay, kind of all packed and bundled into one. So here's how we actually did it. So the very first thing that we're gonna do is create a new track, new audio track. Okay, and then what we're gonna grab is this lead vocal right here. This is the lead vocal that's in the center, and we're gonna drag it and copy it down. So let's just go ahead and mute out that other one. So now we have just a completely raw track with the exact same audio that we had from the lead vocal. So it's just gonna sound literally exactly like the lead vocal.
There's no telling when the bug will bite.
Just there's no processing on it. So there are actually multiple ways you could do this. You could do this routing with a bus, for example. You could even actually put these effects directly onto the lead vocal and then automate them. There are lots of ways of doing it. I do it this way because I like having as much control over an individual track as I can, which is, again, very similar if you were to use a bus, but we're not gonna do it that way for this video. And this is the plugin that I'm using to do this. And it is a really stinking cool plugin by Output called Portal. And I will say this plugin is actually really kind of difficult to use. Like, I'll be the first one to say this plugin's kind of difficult to use. But what I'm gonna do is go to vocals, and we're gonna kind of start running through some of the presets in here, and you're gonna hear exactly what it is that this plugin does in the first place. So let's just do, I don't know, vocal fumbler here. Here we go. Actually, I think that's the exact same preset that I used here, so that's pretty cool. So this is probably the preset that I actually used. And what you can do is actually look at what it's even doing in the first place. So there are all these crazy things happening in here, putting some reverb almost. Looking here into the effects, there's a delay and a reverb. And so this is just this crazy kind of reverby delay thing, but it's kind of giving us a lot more options than like a typical reverb or delay. So I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, well, Nathan, what if I don't have this plugin? Well, there are other ways of doing this. But the way that you're gonna get that really crazy vocal effect, the easy way at least, is to have a plugin like Portal. You could probably even use a combination of delays, reverbs, and maybe the LFO tool. There are all sorts of crazy ways. And so main thing I want to do is show you the concept of how you could actually get some crazy vocal effects to add something extra to the vocal in the first place. And so this is what we have now. Now, for me, I'm thinking, okay, we could probably go even further with some things. The very first thing is, let's just go ahead and roll off all of that bottom end. And the other thing I want to do is jack up some of those higher frequencies, and fresh air is definitely good for this. It'll add some clarity and crispness. Nice. That sounds pretty cool. And then the other thing I'm going to do is probably look at maybe adding in another set of reverb or delay that we could do. So one of my favorite little hacks here is to use Replica, which is a Native Instruments plugin. Go to diffusion mode, set this to as short of a time as possible, and listen to what this does. Now, if you listen to the original one that I came up with, there is this push and pull happening. Listen. So how are we accomplishing that kind of a sound? And the way we do this is by automating the actual vocal itself, this actual track. And you can see I already added some automation in here. So the very first thing is let's put the other vocal on. Let's listen.
There's no telling when the bug will bite.
So then we're going to want to make sure that on that in-between moment, the volume gets kind of cranked up.
There's no telling when the bug will bite.
And then right here, when that comes back in, let's drop that back down.
I've got.
Probably smoothen that out a little bit.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight.
Then on light, maybe have it come back up.
It's so.
And then bring it back down on this So Contagious. Now again, you could do this with other reverbs, other delays, and then what you might want to do actually is mess around with reversing those reverbs and reversing those delays and doing all sorts of crazy things and get creative. The cool thing about this is your imagination really is the limit. And so this isn't just use Portal and come up with crazy stuff. This is more about actually coming up with unique and creative ways of thinking about the actual effect that you want to accomplish within the track, in the context of the track. So one of the things I'm thinking is that I think we need a little bit of extra something on this. And so I'm going to use Baby Audio, come in and use Spaced Out. This is like a reverb delay plugin. And I'm going to really crank some of this reverb on here.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight. It's so contagious, better check your pulse. So.
And then this is what we wind up with.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight. It's so contagious, better check your pulse.
And the one final really cool thing that I did on this, and this is just a complete effect that I did on just the lead vocals, as you can see I used Effect Rack from Sound Toys, Microshift, Phase Mistress, and Crystallizer, and listen to what this does. Ridiculous.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is lime.
So that gives this crazy kind of phasery kind of sound, and let's finally listen to it in the context of the entire track.
There's no telling when the bug will bite. I've got a fever and the cure is limelight. It's so contagious, better check your pulse. So infectious, you may lose your mind.
Shameless little plug, if you want to see how I produce this track literally from start to finish and every single step of the way, you should really think about joining 14 Day Music Producer. I have a link down below that you can check out, and we'll see you in the next video.